What if the prince born in shadows stood in the light first? What if Odin didn't whisper lies into a cradle, but truths into Loki's ear? Imagine a world where the second son was the first choice, where the God of Mischief was never sidelined, never doubted, never broken. A world where Asgard's golden throne was destined not for Thor, but for Loki. This isn't the story you know. This is not thunder before storm. This is the storm itself, rising with a smile. This is Loki's reign. Let's unravel the world that could have been. It started in the golden halls of Asgard. But this time, the laughter wasn't Thor's. It was Loki's, brilliant, confident, and full of promise. It danced through the marble corridors like magic itself, echoing off the crystal domes and gilded spires. The palace, once accustomed to thunderous roars and battle cries, now resonated with a different kind of power, one born not of might, but of mind. On the great throne sat Odin, the All-Father, not weary, not doubtful, but proud. His eyes, often clouded with concern in another life, now held clarity. In front of him stood a young boy with raven-black hair, emerald eyes, and a gaze that measured everything. He wasn't trying to impress. He already had. Odin laid a firm hand on his shoulder, heavy with meaning.
You will be a king unlike any other,
Odin told him. And for the first time, Loki didn't flinch. He didn't wonder if he was enough. He didn't search Thor's face for jealousy or fear, because this time there was no competition, no secret bitterness, no throne dangled just out of reach. Loki had been chosen, not as a backup plan, not as a placeholder, but as the future. And deep in his bones, he believed it. Because in this world, he wasn't the spare. He was the heir. The court bowed, the scribes took note, and the Norns, those ancient weavers of fate, paused their spinning, sensing that something rare had taken root. A son, truly seen. Thor still existed, wild, powerful, glorious. A storm given flesh, he thundered across training fields, eager to clash swords, to test strength, to prove himself in every arena Asgard could offer. He was beloved, admired for his valor and passion. But in this world, the gods whispered not of his greatness, but of his brothers. Because Thor, for all his might, was not chosen. That honor belonged to Loki. Loki, raised not in the shadows but in the heart of the throne room, was shaped like a blade by Odin's own hands. He learned to read between laws, to wield silence like a dagger, to measure enemies not by their weapons but by their wants. While Thor learned to fight battles, Loki was taught to avoid them. When frost giants threatened the Nine Realms, it was not Thor who donned armor. It was Loki, draped in emerald robes, flanked by scribes and envoys, not warriors. His weapon was language, his shield, wit. He stepped into Jotunheim's court, faced down giants twice his size, and spoke with quiet command.
I offer peace, and if that fails, I offer something worse.
Loki said, voice cold but composed. Not a threat, a promise. And they listened, not because they feared war, but because they feared him. In this world, Loki wasn't dismissed. He wasn't the overlooked son or the bitter shadow. He was diplomacy in flesh, precision in motion. He wasn't just worthy of the throne, he was destined for it. The day Odin fell into the Odin sleep, Asgard held its breath. Thor paced outside the healing chambers, fists clenched, ready to charge into war at the first sign of danger. But Loki walked calmly into the throne room, not as a substitute, but as a sovereign. And the throne didn't reject him. It recognized him.
All-Father's absence will not weaken us, it will test us,
Loki declared to the court. He didn't reach for vengeance or flaunt his power. His first act was precise, measured. He sealed the Bifrost to avoid rash retaliation, reinforced treaties with Alfheim and Vanaheim, sent envoys to Midgard not to intimidate, but to assure. He didn't posture, he planned. No declarations of war, no thunder in the sky, just calculated calm. And that unsettled his enemies far more than any storm ever could. Because a god of war is predictable. But a god of strategy? That's dangerous. Frigga watched her son with quiet pride.
You were always meant for this.
She whispered one evening. Loki smiled. Not the smirk of mischief, but something gentler.
I used to think love had to be earned through power, but now I think it's the other way around.
Thor didn't fight for the throne. He didn't need to. Loki didn't take it from him. He was the throne. But power never comes without a cost. Loki's secret still lingered, his Jotun blood, his origin, hidden beneath layers of Asgardian silk and lies. Only, it wasn't hidden anymore. Odin told him, not in shame, not in fear, but in truth.
You were taken from the frost, but you were raised in the light. You are both Loki, and that makes you more, not less.
For once, the truth didn't destroy Loki. It freed him. And with that freedom, Loki built something Asgard had never known: unity. He opened schools in the lower quarters, gave voice to the common folk in court decisions. He rewrote what it meant to be royal, but not everyone approved. The old guard whispered, the warriors frowned. Some muttered that Loki was soft, too clever, not warrior enough. One even challenged him. General Tyr, blade in hand, spat, "A trickster cannot wear a crown." Loki didn't summon guards, didn't cast illusions. He stepped forward, calm, steady.
You're not wrong, I am a trickster. But I'm also your king.
Loki said. Then he whispered a spell, and the general fell unconscious, trapped in a loop of his own worst memory. Even Thor, full of thunder and pride, found himself struggling to keep up.
You speak like a scholar, Loki. I prefer a hammer.
And I prefer results, but you are my brother. That is worth more than any difference.
Loki replied. Thor looked at him, uncertain.
You've changed.
No, I've simply been seen.
Loki said. But every story has a shadow, and in this one, it wasn't Loki. It was Thanos. The mad titan, watching from afar, had counted on Loki's bitterness, on a soul torn by envy. A pawn, easy to move. But this Loki was not so easily played. When the Chitauri were offered, when the Tesseract was dangled, Loki said no. Loki told the messenger,
Tell your master that Asgard does not kneel, and neither do I.
But Thanos did not like being denied, so he sent someone else. The Black Order came for the Tesseract, and Asgard burned. Loki fought beside Thor that night, not as brothers fighting for recognition, but as equals, protecting what they'd built.
I should have hidden it better.
Loki growled, his eyes glowing green.
You protected it better than anyone else could.
Thor replied. They stood in the ruins of the vault, surrounded by shattered glass and glowing embers.
I was the favored son.
Loki whispered.
And now?
Thor asked. Loki looked at the people, the smoke, the silence.
I am the responsible son.
Asgard survived, barely, but the Tesseract was gone, and Thanos was coming. Loki knew they couldn't stop him alone, so he turned to the unlikeliest of places, Midgard. When Loki arrived on Earth, it wasn't with conquest, it was with a warning and a plan.
I come not as a god, but as a student of history. And history tells me this: when the sky darkens, you do not bicker, you unite.
He told the gathered world leaders. Nick Fury didn't trust him, Tony Stark didn't like him, but Steve Rogers understood him.
You've seen the cost of war?
Steve said.
I've lived it, and I would rather choke on peace than drown in fire.
Loki replied. The Avengers weren't assembled by a shadowed council this time. They were led by a prince who had nothing left to prove. Thor, Steve, Natasha, Tony, T'Challa, Wanda, Strange, and Loki. Not as a villain, but as a leader. When the final battle came, it wasn't just fists and fury. It was chess. Loki had been preparing for years. Prophecies, time echoes, and forbidden scrolls had pointed to one truth. Thanos was inevitable.
Inevitable.
But inevitability is not invincibility. And Loki, favored son of Asgard, would not face him unprepared. He cloaked the reality stone in 9 decoys, scattered across forgotten realms, planted false visions in the minds of Thanos' scouts, built layered illusions over entire moons. And yet, the Titan came. He tore through defenses like fate wrapped in flesh. The mad Titan did not rage. He calculated, cold, ruthless. At the edge of the ruins of Nidavellir, where the stars themselves had gone silent, Loki waited. Alone. Thanos stepped forward, gauntlet shimmering.
You must know how this ends.
Loki raised his chin.
I do, but I'm not here to win. I'm here to choose.
Thanos narrowed his eyes.
No more tricks, God of Lies.
Only truth.
Loki said, stepping forward slowly. The stones pulsed. Thanos lifted his hand to strike, but Loki didn't move.
You came for power, but I came for justice.
He said calmly. With a flick of his wrist, the illusion around Thanos cracked, revealing the reality stone was never there. The gauntlet blinked. Unresponsive.
What have you done?
Thanos growled.
Reset the board.
The trap sprung. Runes etched into the stone glowed. Magic pulsed from the realm's core. A failsafe only Loki could activate. A binding spell laced with his very soul. Thanos lunged, and Loki didn't flinch.
If you want the universe, you'll have to go through me.
He whispered. They collided. Light erupted. Reality twisted. And Loki died that day. Not in shame. Not as a puppet, but as a king. Buying the universe one last breath. And in that breath, Thor struck true. The Titan fell. Asgard mourned its king. Midgard remembered its savior. And the 9 realms spoke a new name in reverence. Loki. Not the trickster, not the liar, but the prince who could have ruled with vengeance the son who had nothing and gave everything.